Hi, we're going to have a look in this video at a great fun piece that's set for C2 for the grade, and it's the Muppet Show theme. So I don't know if you've ever seen the Muppet Show, but it was a big thing. And if you haven't seen it, well, why not go on YouTube and just have a look at a Muppet Show so you get some idea what's going on. At the bottom of the page, of course, it tells us something about it. You know, the Muppet Show was a TV series with these characterful puppets that were called Muppets. And it's great fun, actually. And I think you'd quite enjoy actually watching a video and getting into the mood of it. So if you did that, you'd kind of think, okay, I can see and hear what this is all about. In other words, it's a bit of fun. So we don't want to take ourselves too seriously. We want to take our learning seriously so we can play very precisely and accurately, but we want the mood to be very jolly and light-hearted and playful. So that's where we're going with this piece. So have a read at the stuff at the bottom and maybe have a look at a Muppet Show somewhere on YouTube, and I think you'll then think, I know what this piece is about. Notice one piece of advice at the bottom of the page where it says, in the exam, the repeat should be played. Now, there's a kind of rule for the exams that says we, generally speaking, don't play repeats. We do play things like DC, you know, when you get to the end and it says DC al fine. That means go back to the beginning and carry on until it says finish. But apart from those, we don't do repeats. But you'll notice on the second line, there's a bit that's kind of a 1 inside a box, and then there's a 2 inside a box. Well, the 1 is what we call a first time bar. It's what you play the first time. And the 2 is a second time bar, what you play the second time. But you'll notice just at the end of bar 8, there is a repeat side, a double bar line and 2 dots. And that's saying go back, repeat from the beginning. So the first time you play it, you play the notes on the first time bar. You repeat back to the beginning. When you get onto the second line, you miss out the first time bar and you go straight to the second time bar. And they're saying in the exam, the repeat should be played. So this is an exception to the rule about repeats in exams. So that's an important thing just to get sorted out on. Okay, let's talk about kind of what's going on musically in this piece. This piece is in something we call ternary form. That means it's got 3 sections, and the first section comes back at the end, and in the middle there's a kind of something different, contrasting. So if you like, it's like a kind of musical sandwich. You know, in a sandwich you have a piece of bread, then you have some jam or some meat or some cheese or something, then another piece of bread. That's the kind of, a sandwich is sort of ternary form. Interesting way of thinking about it. So that's how it works here. The A section, as we call it, is the first section. The B section comes in the middle. That's the kind of jam or the cheese in the middle of the sandwich. And then the A section comes again at the end. That's another piece of bread. So you see musically how ternary form works. Okay, where are these sections? Well, the A section starts right at the beginning, at the very first note. Boom, straight into the A section. Why do I say that? Well, sometimes you have an introduction before you get going on the tune. So if this piece went, that will be the introduction. And then we get into the tune. This one just goes straight for it. No introduction, boom. So the A section begins in bar 1, and then the first 2 lines of the A section, which we're going to repeat. We talked about that. When you get to line 3, when you get to bar 8, there's the B section. So the A section has got this tune in the right hand. And so on. But when you get to bar 8, the tune goes in the left hand. Here's the B section tune. And then it goes into the right hand, because then we get... And when you turn the page, because this piece has got 2 pages, guess what? Bar 17, beginning of the next page, we're back to the A section. And you think, oh yes, this tune again. And then it all finishes from there. We do, at the end of this piece, have something called a coda. What's a coda? It's a sort of bit stuck on the end to finish the piece off. This piece has got a very short coda. It's just one bar. So the very last bar, that's the coda. Doesn't come much shorter than that. So that's just a way of saying, well, that's the end. So when you look at the last line on the second page, so from bar 21, you've got here's the coda. Okay, so it's just a way of saying, amen, it's all over. Okay, so that's how the piece is what we call structured, how it's put together. We can also look at it in a bit more detail and say, well, how are the phrases organised inside the ternary form? So we've got this A, B, A, kind of capital A, capital B, capital A, to give us the three sections of the piece. What's happening inside the A section? Let's have a look. So the first two bars give us the first phrase. So what's a phrase? A musical sentence, okay? So that's our first sentence. Doesn't sound completely finished, does it? But it's a kind of first sentence. After that, what do we get? Well, in bars 3 and 4, we get something that's a bit similar to the first phrase, but it's just sort of slightly different, isn't it, in the rhythm? So the bar 3 is exactly the same as bar 1, but bar 4 is slightly different from bar 2. So if I play the whole of the first line, here's the first 2-bar phrase. Here's the second 2-bar phrase. So do you hear how the second 2-bar phrase kind of answers the first 2-bar phrase? It's like the first 2-bar phrase is posing a musical question. The next 2 bars give us a musical answer. So it's kind of, 2-bar idea, 2-bar idea repeated, slightly changed, so it gives us an answer. We go on to the second line, and then we have a longer phrase, which is designed to be a bit different. And when you go round for the second time, that second line goes. So you can hear what's happening. In the first time bar, it finishes by going up. So it kind of pulls us back to the beginning. The second time it finishes coming down and sort of finishes on D. The piece of music's in D major. So it's come back home to what we call the tonic. You get the idea. So it's interesting just to try and hear how long are the phrases. We've got 2, 2, 4 bars. Then there's 1 bar link at the end of the first time bar. We just have those 3 notes and then we go back and do it again. But this time the B section, the B phrase is kind of changed. So have a listen to how that works together, because lots of people, when they learn pieces, they just learn their way from one note to the next. And then when they get into the exam or they're playing in a concert or a music festival or wherever they're going to perform it, they go, no, 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 no. It's a very unmusical way to play, and the audience will be sitting there thinking, well, okay, I can hear the notes, but not making a lot of musical sense. So if you can feel how do the phrases work, you can make much more musical sense. Have a listen to this. Here's the first phrase. Second phrase. Almost the same, but giving us an answer. Here's the contrasting phrase. Then there's a link. Then we go back to the beginning. First phrase again. Second phrase, almost the same, but different ending. Here's the next new phrase. Different ending coming up. And then it goes back home. So you begin to think, I can kind of feel how that works. Let's go to the third line where the big B section begins, and we have a new phrase in the left hand, remember. Contrasting in character. It's not quite as bouncy in the rhythm, is it? And then the next bit's similar but shorter. Okay, so it's almost the same again, but I say shorter, not shorter in length, but it doesn't have the last note. You see the first bit on this line 3, D, D, C sharp, E, D, A. Then we do it again without the A. D, D, C sharp, E, D. There's no A there. And then the right hand kind of takes over from the left hand. And And then this is very similar tune, but then it changes there. Instead of that D we had, we've gone to F sharp. Yeah, and then it comes down to A. So there's a phrase. And then we have another phrase. And that kind of leaves us in the air. We can't finish the piece now. We're kind of waiting for something else to happen. What's going to happen? We're going to go back to our A section. So the left hand does this little link at the end of the first page. Ba-dum! As you turn the page, oh, we're going back to the original. And then we've got one little change in the rhythm. Just watch out for this in bar 19. So we get that little dotted rhythm. Don't get caught out by that. And then notice at 21, we've gone a bit higher. Before our coda. Okay, so you see that when that A section comes back on the second page, there are little changes, aren't there? But it's basically the same music. So I'm hoping that's now giving you an idea about, yeah, okay, I can see what's happening with the phrase structure. So we've got ternary form, A, B, A, the musical sandwich. And then inside the ternary form, we've got these phrases. And you want to think in phrases when you play a piece of music, and then it will be much more musical. Now, you might be thinking, well, it's all very well, but, you know, I've not even learned the notes yet. Great, learn the notes. And then when you've learnt them, you can be working on this. But what I do always think is, don't make learning the notes your starting point. Always start by thinking, what kind of piece is this? What kind of mood is it? Where does it come from? What do I need to know about this? I need to know who these Muppets are and what the Muppet Show is and all the rest of it. I need to kind of get the idea of how the composer's written it, how this ternary form thing works, how the phrases work, because then as you're learning it, you'll make much more musical sense of it straight away, because you're thinking, right, I'm learning the first phrase or I'm learning the second phrase. And I know that the second phrase is kind of the same as the first phrase with a different ending, and it's a kind of question and an answer. You start playing it in a more musical way. So I think it's a really useful thing to do. Okay, so when you're learning it, I suggest one good way to learn this piece is to learn the tune first. So you do exactly what I've just done. In other words, you start by learning the right hand on the first two lines. I'll come back to the left hand later. So just you get that tune focused in your mind. Then when you come, having done the first two lines, I think the next thing I would do would be to learn the right hand on the second page. So when that A section of the ternary form comes back, you're thinking, yep, I've just learnt the beginning of the piece. Now I'll learn the end of the piece because lots of that is familiar. And then I need to learn what's slightly different about it. So get really clear about the right hand tune in the A section at the beginning and the A section on the second page. Then I would come back to the B section, learn the left hand from bar 8 all the way through line 3. And then at the end of line 3, you know, retire from the left hand, move into the right hand, learn the right hand from there to the end of the page. Then you've got all of the tune. And it's a really good idea if you can play the whole piece just playing the tune. Thinking, have I got all the notes right? Have I got the rhythms? Am I happy about the fingering? All those usual things, they're important. But then also think, can I actually communicate the phrase structure? Am I just going, no, 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 no? Or am I thinking, here's the first phrase, here's the second phrase. So the listener starts to kind of make sense of the music. Okay, one thing just to watch out for in this piece are these funny little, what we call syncopated rhythms. So syncopated is when you're kind of off the beat slightly. So syncopated, syncopations, we call them. The first bar, the first measure that has this is bar 2. So can you see what's happening in bar 2? We've got some kind of tied notes that are giving us what we call syncopation. So that bar 2 rhythm goes like this. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you see, when I'm counting that, it's a bit kind of funny, isn't it? I'm counting numbers, but I'm not changing notes on the numbers, but I'm changing notes between the numbers. It's a bit complicated. Not as complicated as you think. One way you can learn those kind of rhythms is they're really catchy. You can remember them. So you could listen to me play it. Just kind of learn that rhythm and then you'll be away. If you want to calculate it, which I think is a good idea, one thing you can do with these kind of things, like bar 2, take the ties out. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4. If you play it without the ties, you can kind of see where all the notes fit in. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Then all you got to do is put the ties back in. So in other words, you know, just don't repeat the notes when you've got a tie. So you go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Then try to do it without the ands. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just so you get kind of used to doing those syncopated rhythms. So they're worth working on because they're a feature of the piece. They come back in bar 4. Do you see bar 4 on the right hand? It goes 1, 2, 3, 4. So all the numbers are sort of where the notes are. So again, take the tie out. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Hear that? 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Now put the tie back in. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. The only difference is you're not repeating that note. When you can do that, can you get rid of the ands? 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, it's catchy. You could listen to me play that and just learn the rhythm. It's a good idea to try and calculate it though. The next one, bar 6 on line 2. Do you see what's happening here? You know, that, again, it's quite a snazzy rhythm. You might just think, I can remember that. But if I take the tie out, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and put the tie back in, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and take the ands out, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you notice what I'm doing, I'm slowing it down. You don't have to go full speed ahead while you're learning these rhythms. If you get the rhythms right at a slower speed when you've got time to think about it, then you'll be able to speed up later. Okay, well, bar 7 has got a similar syncopation to bar 6. Yeah, that is 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, you could remember it. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. That's counting the ands and taking the tie out. Put the tie back in. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay, take the ands out. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the same rhythm in the second time bar as it is in the first time bar. Okay, you've got the same kind of rhythm coming back in the right hand in bar 15 towards the end of the page. And of course, on the last page, we've got those same kind of rhythms coming back again. So learning to deal with your syncopated rhythms. Okay, is there anything happening in syncopation in the left hand? Well, yes, there is. The first line is pretty solid. That's all on the beats. But when you look at the second line, it starts on the beat, but then it kind of goes off. So bar 5 goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you've got to be kind of on your mettle with that just to kind of get all that absolutely in time. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So do you see how that kind of just needs a little bit of working to get our syncopated rhythms going? Sometimes when you've kind of learnt it hand separately, you kind of realise that the two hands kind of work together a little bit. So in places like line 2, if I slow it down, together, together, together. So that kind of helps, I think, if you can sort of see what comes together with the other hand. Another bar where you're going to have to deal with this is like bar 15 on the bottom line. So that is a very similar situation, isn't it, to the one we just looked at in bar 7. Same rhythm, in fact, but it's just slightly different notes. So it's just getting your head around those bits of rhythm. So I would learn that melody in the right hand in the A sections, and then I'd learn that melody in the left hand in the B section, and I'd take particular note of what's going on with those syncopated rhythms. Okay, having learnt the tune, you can then go back and learn the accompaniment. But it's kind of knowing, well, when has the right hand got the tune, when's the left hand got the tune, and when is the left hand got accompaniment, but when's the right hand got accompaniment? So we're not confused by any of that. Looking at the A section on the first two lines, the left hand is accompanying. Okay, so whatever the dynamic is, I mean, it says MF here, a little bit less than MF in the left hand, bit more than MF in the right hand, so we can always hear the tune. But the left hand is doing some fairly straightforward stuff. Just working through these notes. So you just need to learn these notes. And it's kind of giving us a kind of beat in the left hand. And we've talked about this syncopation. Then there's a little link, and then we go back and repeat it. So I think you'll probably learn those notes fairly quickly. Might as well play the staccatos all the way through, then you get used to those. On line 2, notice the left hand is playing D at the top over and over again. D, 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 C sharp. So they're all Ds until that last C sharp. So that's quite useful. You don't have to keep thinking, what's the top note? Just keep repeating Ds until it changes. What's the bottom part of the left hand doing? It's kind of walking down a scale. So a slightly funny scale, but it's going D, C natural, B, B flat, A again, G. So you see, it's kind of useful to sort of see that scale. So instead of thinking every time there's a new note or a new chord, what are the notes I've got to play now? Try to think, is there a note that's repeating? Is something going down a scale? Because it sort of helps you to take in that left hand. So that might just help you with the left hand accompaniment. When the left hand plays more than one note at a time, in other words, it starts playing chords, just make sure those notes are exactly together. Because it's a bit ragged if you kind of do all this kind of stuff. Some people play chords like that, but they've got to be really precisely together. Start together, come off together. And that'll be really good if you can do that. So that's what's happening in the left-hand accompaniment of the A section. When you turn to the second page, the left-hand accompaniment is slightly different this time. So even though the right hand is almost, roughly the same as it was before, there are changes in the right hand, as we said, but the left hand a little bit different. So bar 17, you've got this D, then you've got to play this F natural and A flat thing. Then that's coming down, both those notes coming down a semitone or a half step. And then we're coming back to that same kind of corner again, and then we're going on somewhere else. And then on the second line, this is a bit familiar, isn't it? Remember we spoke about that stuff from bar 5. Well, here it is. You can see we've got these things coming again, and then it's just making sure we can do the last bit. So probably a good idea to get the left hand as the A sections going next. Then I would come to the right hand of the B section. So this is line 3, bar 8, because we've got some chords in the right hand. Notice it says legato. So that's both the left and the right hand, but trying to play as smoothly as you can. Notice these are minims or half notes. They've got 2 beats each. I think there'll be plenty of people doing this, kind of stabbing at the chords and then having great rest in between. But can you play as smoothly as you dare? Going through those chords. You've got these chords in bars 8, 9, 10, 11, but actually you've only got to worry about the first set of chords because they then come again, all right? So you notice the chord at the end of bar 10 is the same as the chord in bar 8. Then when you look in bar 11, you see you've got the same chords as you had in bar 9. That's always useful to notice when you get repetitions. So bar 8, you've got a chord, F sharp, C natural and D. It looks as if maybe you play the D after the C. It's only because those 2 notes are next door to each other that they're put alongside each other rather than on top of each other, just to make it clearer. But they all belong to the same stem, so you play them all together. So 3 notes in that chord, coming into this chord, So you kind of notice you start with this chord, then it sort of comes in, it contracts, as we say, to G and B. Then you just got to change the top note to B flat. Then both the notes come down a semitone or a half step. Just watch your fingering. And then go back and do those first three chords again. So, I think you'll get that going quite easily. Okay, now let's go to the bottom line, bar 13. The tune now, remember, has gone back into the right hand. So we need to make sure we can play these left hand chords. So we've got this chord, then both the notes go out from there. Then we almost come back to the first chord, but this time it's got D sharp at the top instead of D natural. We repeat that chord. Then you've got to find your way to this chord, the G sharp and the D. Sounds a bit funny, that chord. Don't let it worry you. That's how it should be. It's called a tritone. G sharp up to D is 3 tones. 1, 2, 3. So we call it a tritone. And tritones always sound a bit funny. So if you think, am I playing that right? If it sounds like a tritone, it is. So you play that G sharp and D, then you repeat it. Both notes go down a semitone or a half step. So again, reading how you get from one chord to the next, see the pattern of movement, rather than thinking, some more new notes I've got to find. We'll just get you sorted on that. Okay, so that's now kind of dealt more or less with kind of what we're doing with the tune, what we're doing with the accompaniment. And I think as a way of learning the piece, you'll find that's probably quite a useful thing to do. And then, of course, you can start putting it hands together and seeing where we go with it all. Now, when you're getting it all going, watch out for these dynamics. The A section at the beginning is all MF. Doesn't mean to say you just play every single note exactly the same MF. As we've said, the tunes in the right hand make the right hand MF plus, make the left hand accompaniment MF minus, so we get balance between the melody and the accompaniment. And also try to shape your phrase. Imagine singing this line. It doesn't matter if you're a singer or not, but you wouldn't hopefully you wouldn't. But if you can sort of think, well, where is this melody going? Tambadi ti do do do. Do you see what I'm doing there? I'm using the first bar to kind of crescendo to the beginning of the second bar, and then I'm doing a bit of a diminuendo. Yeah? Tam pom pom party dee doo. Pom 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 party doo. Do you see how that's what we call shape? Much more interesting, isn't it, than just going no, no, no. Okay, and then you can get the left hand to support that. And that kind of makes sense then, doesn't it? Much more musical sense. When you come to the second line, bum 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 ba dee dee do 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 dum ba dum ba dum. You see what I'm doing? Getting a bit louder, a bit quieter, a bit louder, a bit quieter. You can do different shape. That's fine. You do whatever shape you want to. But sometimes you want to get louder as it goes up and quieter as it comes down. Sometimes you think, actually, all these notes are drawing us to that note. So that wants to be the kind of peak of where I am. Notice lots of these phrases begin with a rest. Like at the beginning, you've got rest. Bum, bum, pom, pom. So those first 3 notes kind of take you to the 4th note, don't they? Ba ti tum po do dum. So that seems to me to be a logical way of doing it. You wouldn't go bum 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 bum, because why would you do that? It doesn't kind of feel right, does it? So I'm a great believer in singing. Doesn't matter if you're a singer or not. If you hate singing, well, it's not about being a singer. It's about singing the line so you can feel the shape of a line. And then when you come to the left hand on line 3, ya dee da dee da ya do, pa ya do 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 do. Do you see what I'm doing there? That's really helping me to discover some shape, isn't it? So think about the shape. So that makes such a difference. If you can get a good balance between the melody and the accompaniment, and then when it changes over, when you come to line 3, make sure we can hear the left hand. You see, I'm trying to shape the left hand, but I'm keeping my right hand chords in the background. I think some people, when they come to line 3, won't really have realised the tune's in the left hand, and they'll be bashing out the right hand chords. That doesn't make any sense. It sort of sounds all right, I suppose, but it doesn't make any musical sense because we've lost the tune and now we're just getting belted with all these chords. So that's why it's so important to be able to do this stuff well. Okay, so hopefully you can then think balance, shape in the melody. That will be really good. Okay, trying to get the contrast between the bits that are smooth and the bits that are maybe more articulated. Okay, so at the beginning, left hand, you've got this staccato thing going on. It gives it more character if you get those staccatos. Then notice when you go on to line 2, they're not marked staccato, you've got rest. So it's kind of slightly longer notes. They're still crotchets or quarter notes, but they're longer. 1 off, 3 off, 1 off, 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 off. So you're kind of bringing your left hand notes up for those rests. Don't hold them into rest. There'll be people playing long notes and ignoring the rest. There'll be people playing staccato, 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 staccato. May sound all right, but it's not quite what's written, is it? So making sure that those left-hand notes are longer than they were on the first line because they're not staccato, but not so long that they go into the rest. So stopping for rests. I've often found lots of people are really good at starting notes and they're not very good at finishing notes. So sometimes being precise about where notes finish really adds a little bit of sparkle to what you're doing. For example, here's another one. Bar 15, you see the left hand on the bottom line there. Rest, rest. You know, it's very easy just to play this chord, play this chord, play this chord, and sort of ignore the rest. But 1, 2, 3, and then just being really precise about, you see, when I counted 2, I lifted off that chord. So we get all that precise. Other things about timing, the very last bar of the first page, you've got 2 beats rest and then you've got ba-dum. Some people I think will be kind of playing that too early. You need to count the rest. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we got that. There's an accent there. And there's also this funny little note, this G sharp. This is kind of half-sized note with a stick and a line through the corner. That's called an acciaccatura, a crush note. So you crush it into A. Ba-dum, ba-dum. All right, so you play the G sharp as quickly as you can and play it smoothly onto A. But remember, there's an accent, that little dagger sign on the A. So it's interesting, you know, when you look at the piece, you suddenly think, oh, there's lots of little details, aren't there? So what's smooth? What's staccato? What's accented? Where are there rests that I need to make sure I'm lifting off the notes for? Where are there moments where I've really got to count something so it's bang in time? Because this piece needs to be rhythmic. Some pieces you can slow down a bit here to make it more expressive, maybe speed up a little bit there. This piece needs to be pretty much in time all the way through. And on that note, have you noticed the time signature of this piece is 2-2? So what's 2-2? 2 minim beats in each bar, or 2 half note beats in each measure. Now, when you look at the music, you might think, well, it's the same as 4-4, isn't it? Because 4-4 is 4 crotchet beats in every bar, or 4 quarter note beats in every bar. And when you look at the music, it seems to work. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a good way to learn it. I think actually when you're learning the piece, you might want to learn it in 4-4. But when you get going with this and you've got it all where you want it, you do not want this piece to feel as if it's got 4 beats in every bar. Mathematically, 4-4 is the same as 2-2. Musically, they're not the same at all. Let me show you what I mean. If we do the opening, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now let's do it in 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, Do you feel it feels different, doesn't it? Instead of feeling like soldiers on the march, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, it's a bit lighter. Bum pa dim po do do do, bum ba dee dum bom. And if you see an episode of the Muppet Show, you realise they're not soldiers. They're not soldiers marching. They're having a fun time. So it's a bit lighter. So the 2-2, if you can get to the point where you can feel 2 beats in a bar instead of 4, that's going to make a big difference. And it says things at the beginning, like there's a speed marking. It says minim equals about 80, or half note equals about 80. So that is not the speed of a crotchet or a quarter note. It's the speed of a minim. So there are 2 crotchets for every one of those minims, or 2 quarter notes for every one of those half notes. So if you're wanting to use a metronome and you're sort of counting it in 4 beats in a bar, you'll have to set it at 160, double that number, to get the right speed for it. When you can do that, bring it back to 80 and try to feel it 2 beats in a bar. That will add a lot to the mood of this. And this word brightly at the beginning, it will kind of make that happen. Okay, so one other thing at the beginning, the right hand is not particularly marked to be played anything. I think the fact that it's not marked with anything is maybe implying that it should be fairly smooth. But if you wanted to play it a little bit articulated, you probably could. Do you see what I'm doing there? Just some notes slightly detached with a bit of smooth in there. That's open to interpretation. So we try to do everything that's marked. Then we say, how do I feel this? And does it make sense? Whatever you do, try and do it kind of the same way when that same tune comes back. It's not logical to do it one way here and then the same tune gets treated a different way later. But you've got a bit of choice. When you come to line 3, it's definitely legato. Do, 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 do. But because that's legato, you might think in the A sections, actually slightly detached in the tune on some notes might be a good contrast. But you could play it smoothly. I think that's absolutely fine. Okay, listen to the tone. Are you making a wonderful sound? Or are we just bashing notes? Because lots of people kind of crash through this piece. This kind of, I'm having a great time bashing out notes. But this won't be a nice sound to listen to. Always listen to the sound, that's what we call the tone, and ask yourself, is this the most beautiful tone that I could produce? Every musician should be thinking that all the time. And if you can do all those things, which is not much to ask, is it? Haha. Then you will end up with a really super performance of the Muppet Show theme. So I hope that's been helpful in helping you to think out, well, what are the things that I've really got to work on? I've done a little bit of talking about notes and rhythms and technical things. You'll be able to work on that stuff with your teacher quite happily. What I'm really trying to get you to think about is, what is this piece about? How do I communicate it? How do I make a performance that's not just going to pass in an exam, but actually could do really well by sort of ticking all these boxes in terms of musicianship and what we're communicating in terms of what we understand about the piece. So it's really good to use your imagination to think about that. But it's such a fun piece, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy watching the Muppet Show somewhere and then learning to play their theme music. So enjoy learning that piece.